the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons, and thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, but his blindness in committing impious activities to support his dishonest sons was a greater blindness than his physical lack of eyesight. The physical lack of sight does not bar one from spiritual progress. But when one is blind spiritually, even though physically fit, that blindness is dangerously detrimental to the progressive path of human life. So, text 7. Yada sabhayam kurudeva devya keshabhimasham sutakarmagaryam navarayam asanipashnushaya swasre harantya kuchakunkumani. Word for word translation. Yada, when. Sabhayam, the assembly. Gurudeva Devya of Draupadi, the wife of godly Yudhishthira. Kesha Abhimarsham, insult by grabbing her hair. Sutakama, action taken by his son. Garhyam, which was abominable. Na, did not. Parayam asa, forbid. Nripa, the king. Shnushaya, of his nephew's wife. Swashre, by her tears. Harantya, of she who was watching. Kucha kunkumani, the red dust on her breast. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. The king did not forbid his son Dusashan's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly king Yudhishthira, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breast. And text 8, and I'm going to say that 3 times, and then anyone who wants to recite can do so also. Dute dharme na jitasya sado satya palambasya vanam gatasya nayachato dat samaye nadayam tamo jushano yat ajata shatro Dute dharme na jitasya sado Satya Balambasya Banam Gatasya Naya Chato Dat Samaye Nadayam Tamo Jushano Yad Ajata Shatro. Are you so Dute? Let's see. Sorry, I have trouble reading this. Dute Twadalme Najitasya Sado Satya Valambasya Vanam Gatasya Naya Chatu Dat Samaye Nadayam Tamojushano Yad Ajita Satro. Hare Krishna. So anyone who wants to chant can do that now.
Do we have to stand of 8th one? Is that right?
Yeah, Dute to Adwan. I'm going to make it bigger, a little bigger. I'm looking for, zoom, go up a little bit. Is it better?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, good.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dutye tu adharmena jitasya saraha satyavalambasya vanam gatasya nayachato dat samayena dayam jushano yad ajata sadho. Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
दयुते अधर्मेण चित्तस्य साधो सत्यावलम्बस्य वनामगतस्य न याचतो अदातु समयेन दायाम् तमोजुषाणो यद् अजातशत्रुः.
Right.
युते युतधर्मेण जितस्य साधु सत्यावलम्बस्य वनं गतस्य न याचतो दासमयेन दायं तमोजुषाणो यदजातशत्रुः.
Right. All right. So we'll do word for word now. Duty by means of gambling. 2. But adharmena by unfair tricks. Jitasya of the vanquished. Sadho, a saintly person. Satya avalambasya, one who embraced truth as shelter. Vanam, forest. Gatasya, of the goer. Na, never. Yachata, when asked for. Adat, delivered. Samayena, in due course. Dayam, right share. Tamajushana, overwhelmed by illusion. Yat, as much as. Ajata Satru, of one who had no enemy. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Yudhishthira, who was born without any enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling, but because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dhritarashtra, who was overwhelmed by illusion. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj Yudhishthira was the rightful heir to his father's kingdom, but just to favor his own sons, headed by Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, Maharaj Yudhishthira's uncle, adopted various unfair means to cheat his nephews of their rightful share of the kingdom. At last, the Pandavas demanded only 5 villages, one for each of the 5 brothers, but that was also refused by the usurpers. This incident led to the war of Kurukshetra. The battle of Kurukshetra, therefore, was induced by the Kurus and not the Pandavas. As Kshatriyas, the proper livelihood of the Pandavas was only to rule and not to accept any other occupation. A Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya will not accept employment for his livelihood under any circumstances. Oma Gnati Mirandasya, Gana Ganashalakaya, Chakshu Unyutam Dina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhuttale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Dati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaisnavam Scha Shri Rupa Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sa Advaitam Sa Avadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Panamani Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhescha Kripa Sundibhe Evacha Atitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Shari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvishesha Sunyabari Paschatya Shacharini. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gunati Se Namaha. Ananda Lilamaya Vigrahaya Himavya Divacha Vishundaraya Tasmi Mahaprema Raspadaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Sri Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Sri Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste Sri Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Okay, so this text, we'll go back to text 5 and do the English translation from there on. So the English translation for text 5. Sri Shuta Goswami said, the great sage Shukadeva Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively. English translation for text 6. Shukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons, and thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. Text 7, English translation. The king did not forbid his son's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly king Yudhishthira, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breast. Text 8, English translation. Yudhishthira, who was born without any enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling. But because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dhritarashtra, who was overwhelmed by illusion. Hare Krishna. So this is Shukadeva Goswami talking about some of the events in the Kurukshetra, in the Mahabharata, that finally led to the Kurukshetra war. So, in text 5, the lesson we learn from it is from what Sutta Goswami is reporting to the sages at Naimisharanya. First of all, he praised a few sentences, a few words, but it was high praise for Shukadeva Goswami. The great sage, he called him a great sage, and then also talked about the fact that Shukadeva Goswami was highly experienced. Now, sometimes we think that experience means a person has been into life and been, seen quite a number of events happen, and they pick their lessons from it. And therefore, when things happen later on in the future, or somebody that's younger reports some things to them, they can lean back on what they've learned earlier and then what they went and what they did to resolve the problem, and share that knowledge. So a person who can do that is called experienced. But then how do we reconcile the situation that Shukadeva Goswami is only 16 years old and he's being called experienced? 16 years old. Well, we have to remember Shukadeva Goswami's situation. He is Shuka the parrot. He's actually a pure devotee. And we've been told already that the soul is what? Sat Chit Ananda. Sat eternal, but Chit full of knowledge. On top of that, Shukadeva Goswami had heard the whole Srimad Bhagavatam before he was born. So he had definitely a lot of knowledge. And if you hear about Srimad Bhagavatam, you just have to literally apply it and you will be automatically an experienced person because there's so much knowledge there. So much knowledge there. Therefore, Sutta Goswami was right on point when he said Shukadeva Goswami, even though his age was the way he was a teenager, he was highly experienced. Well, for that matter, Lord Chaitanya was also 16 years old when he defeated the Keshava Kashmiri. But we put him in a different category because he's God, right? But still, the age based on the pastime of his own development, the way he grew up based on his own pastime, the Lord doesn't have a, strictly speaking, the Lord has no beginning. He's the beginning of everything. Well, Brahma says that even in his his prayer to Radha Krishna. Hmm? Without beginning, the beginning of everyone and everything, the Lord, material and spiritual. But still, it was interesting that, to come back to this point, Chitta Goswami praised Shukadeva Goswami like that. So when he was questioned by Maharaj Parikshit, by the king, then he says, please hear these topics attentively, because he was going to say something that was very important. Actually, everything he was talking about was important for Maharaj Parikshit, and for that matter, for us also. So every time that we are in class, we have to hear attentively. Sometimes our mind tells us, oh, do this, do this. Oh, you're on Zoom, they can't see you. This, take your camera off, you can do whatever you want. Well, what happens is it really affects our concentration on what's being talked about. And therefore, we only partly hear them. But here, Chitta Goswami said that Shukadeva Goswami is saying to the king, please hear these topics attentively. Therefore, attentive hearing and attentive chanting are very important, both for us. So in text 6, then Shukadeva Goswami is saying that Shukadeva Goswami began to relate points from what happened in the life of Maharaj Dhritarashtra. King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons. First thing, Srila Prabhupada tells us, we have to disconnect from materialism. Sometimes we're very attached to our families. And for material reasons, we say, well, it should be this way, it should be that way, it should be this way. That is usually fueled by our false ego. The higher understanding of this is that for many, many lifetimes, we have had so-called families. We have been the mother, sometimes we've been the father, sometimes the son, sometimes the daughter, and sometimes nephew when you consider extended families and so on. All of these roles we've already played. And so getting attached to that, what is the result? We come back to the material world to take another body. So everything in material, we do just what is necessary, but not become so attached to things material. This was Dhritarashtra's weakness. He became blind under the influence of impious desires. He wanted the best for his sons against good judgment. And when it became clear that the Pandavas were not so easily defeatable in so many ways, because they were being protected, not even the fact that they were Kshatriyas. Kshatriya training they got from Dronacharya earlier in their life. But as sons of Pandu and pure devotees of the Lord, very Krishna-centered, thinking of Krishna all the time, they were automatically protected. That's what Krishna does. The extent to which we surrender, Krishna says he will, in fact, reward us accordingly. And sometimes the reward takes place in terms of protection. Dhritarashtra had become physically blind this lifetime. He was the firstborn, therefore, according to the way the tradition of rulership was done, the firstborn should be on there. Firstborn. In the case of Maharaja Shabbadev, he had 100 sons. Bharat Maharaj was the firstborn. So he was the one that became the ruler. So that's nothing new. But the problem is, Dhritarashtra's karma, sinful reaction had come to kick in, because as Krishna explained to him, 50 lifetimes before that time, Dhritarashtra, he was a hunter, and he had shot a flaming arrow with fire at the tip, into a nest of 100 birds and their mother. The nest with the mother bird in there, and 100 little birds. And the nest caught fire, needless to say. All of the birds were burned. All of the little birds were burnt. The mother fled for her life, but the flame, the fire, damaged the eyes of the mother bird. So she became blind. And so, as sinful, negative karma is there, that time, 50 lifetimes later, many other things that that particular soul had to go through, he had come to a point where now he had also 100 offspring, just like the bird had 100 offspring. Hmm? And the mother bird came blind because of him. So now he was also blind. Now, clearly, a blind person trying to rule, that's going to be difficult. So it was not a bad decision that they bypassed him. But this is what sometimes creeps up in people's hearts. But it is supposed to be for me, and now it's been given to my younger brother. So he pretended that he was going along with it, but all the while, he didn't like the idea. Hmm? So he said, all right, now that my younger brothers died, and they have said temporarily that because the Pandavas were not of age yet, the firstborn Maharaj Yudhishthira, that Dhritarashtra should rule to the point where Maharaj Yudhishthira could take over. But still, he was burning. He was now blind to the reality of the matter, that Pandu was king, and therefore Yudhishthira, deservedly being the first son, should be king next. And he says, well, I should have been given. The point is, if you were thinking that way, why didn't you protest the first time it was given to Pandu? At least go to Satyavati, who was the queen mother, and express your feelings about it so it can be discussed and things put to rest. This is what happens. And still it happens even in this society among devotees. Some things are burning in their hearts and they keep it and not have any discussion. And then it comes to a situation where now sabotage sets in because you want things that way. Some things did not quite make us happy with the situation, but we didn't express it. We kept it and then had it fester. And as soon as we do that, then Maya will stoke that fire, the fire of hatred, the fire of wanting to perform impious things. The next thing you know, you start making decisions, start doing things that are obviously very, very horrible, abominable, like the Dhritarashtra supporting the whole idea between Shakuni and his Dhritarashtra's own first son, Duryodhana, to have Puruchan set a house which is easily, highly flammable. And then Dhritarashtra inviting them, Pandavas, to go spend time there on vacation, when in fact it was a trap meant for them to burn to death. So Srila Prabhupada is saying Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, but the blindness of committing impious activities just for his sons was greater than the physical lack of eyesight. So many times he said, I may be blind, but I can think. He himself made that statement, especially at the times where Gandhari was right in his face and trying to reason with him. Oh, yes, I can think. Well, this time he wasn't thinking. To take the lives of the Pandavas and their mother, because Mahani Kunti went too. So to be blind spiritually is more dangerous. Anyone who is blind spiritually is going to come back and take another physical body. And sometimes not even the type that's human, not the 1 to 400,000 type, the 8 million non-human type. So to be spiritually blind is serious, but unfortunately, many people don't even know. They're living like that. That's why it says we are just sophisticated animals. Actually, in school, they teach you also man is a higher animal. A higher animal? Well, you come to Krishna consciousness, man is a physical body. The real one is the soul. We are not these bodies. So the books have to be rewritten also for education. Now, in text 7, the king in his own court, with all these highly learned sages, Duryodhan was there, not him, he's not highly learned, but we're talking about Dronacharya and Bhishma, they were all there. And this whole thing about the what you call it, the gambling that was done, the dice game, where the Pandavas, especially Yudhishthira, they were cheated badly. And now he was induced to bet and put his wife on as a bet. And now, since they were being cheated, there was no way that Yudhishthira could have won any part of this with the loaded dice. So they grabbed Draupadi. First, they asked they sent someone to get Draupadi. Draupadi didn't come. They then asked Dushasan to go get Draupadi. And the abominable part of Draupadi's action was that he grabbed Draupadi by her hair. Now, it's one thing to force somebody to come. It's one thing to even grab their hand and try to pull them to come. But their hair gives particular pain. Even one hair on the body just pulled out, even that alone gives pain. Much less just grab a handful and pull her like that. So Dushasan's aim was to disgrace the wife, Draupadi herself, and also to disgrace the Pandavas at the same time. And the king, even though he was blind, knew what was going on. And he didn't stop his son, Dushasan, from doing such a abominable, absolutely horrible act. Gives so much pain. It's one thing to win her in a bet, which is bad enough. But to get her to come to, you give her such pain, and just see the queen being dragged away. Queen, his queen in the past was theirs at that time. And being dragged like that. So this is absolutely horrible on the part of what the Kurus did. And their father didn't say anything about it. There was one incident. And again, when I mention incidents, especially involving the Woodies, I usually won't mention any names, but this was a very unfortunate incident. It happened. It did happen in Gitanagari. That's as far as I'm going to talk about in terms of the situation itself. So there was a meeting, and Gitanagari at that time, of course, had so many devotees, different spiritual masters, and so on. They were there. And there was a decision that was being made, and there were a couple of devotees that were having a different type of decision. Now, here's where the problem was. The decision that was being made was by a group of devotees with one spiritual master. And the two Matajis that came, they had a different spiritual master. In fact, one of them was a Prabhupada disciple. And they had a counter suggestion. Not a bad suggestion, but a counter suggestion. Sometimes there's more than one way to do things. Unfortunately, because the decision was counter, or it was different from what the overwhelming number of people who were in there were making that decision. They didn't get a simple no, but they got jumped on. They got insulted. And just for having a counter suggestion, so many things came up. People started accusing them based on the body level and so many things. So obviously, just like Dhritarashtra had some thoughts that he was being cheated from being a king, and he never said anything about it when the throne was given to Pandu. There were some things that had happened that was going on, and nothing had been discussed about it. And therefore, just one counter suggestion, which wasn't a bad one, triggered an avalanche of not only disagreement, but literally disrespect to the two Matajis who are actually older by initiation to the rest of them. So it can happen everywhere. It can happen everywhere. I heard this later on. I was not there myself at that time this was happening, that meeting. But of course, this is community. Everything comes out, people hear about it. And so it was very, 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 very unfortunate. That's about as far as I want to go with that. But we just have to be careful sometimes, not let things just fester and fester, and then people just begin to take actions that are unfortunate, even for a very simple situation. The other thing about it is that when and we'll talk about it a little bit later, maybe in a few minutes from now. But generally, when devotees offend like that kind of a parade, we are here to learn lessons to become better devotees, to improve, taking off our unwanted desires and alternativity. Krishna can, in fact, reprimand or punish one devotee at a time, or he can punish a whole set of devotees if they do one thing that's wrong, and nothing is done about it in terms of apologies and so on. The repercussions does happen. And this group of people were actually given a status of practically no influence at all in Gitanagri. Practically no influence at all. When they were in boards and they were in different, decision-making positions, they lost everything. So you gotta be careful. You have to be careful. Devotees can be helped. Devotees can be very helpful. They can be helped. But once we allow negative things to sit and not get resolved, some of the resolution ways to resolve things is if you can talk, in a very civilized, wonderful, caring way with the person that you disagree with, yes, you can have that kind of conversation. If not, then you go to somebody that person that you're having this situation with respects. Then you just tell them about what's going on and have that person speak on your behalf to resolve things. It is very, very important that we not harbor things that are negative in our spiritual life because it will affect us. So Yudhishthira, he was clean, Dharmaraja's son, and Maharani Kunti's son, and he was defeated in gambling unfairly. And he went, when the second time they had the dice, they lost and they left and went to the forest as per the conditions of the bet. 12 years. They had to leave in the past. 12 years. And then 1 year of incognito. They did all of that. Came back and Dhritarashtra was still the king. They asked for Indraprastha back, their portion that was given to them. Dhritarashtra still refused. Duryodhana said, no, we won't give you even the amount of land to fit on the head of a pin, not even that quantity, even a minute portion of anywhere in the kingdom. He wouldn't do it. But Dhritarashtra was the king. Duryodhana was just a prince. Dhritarashtra is the decision maker. He could have given in the past back to them. The first time that the bet was, they disrespected Draupadi, and that time Indraprastha had been won, albeit unfairly, but Dhritarashtra gave it back to the Pandavas. So it wasn't like he couldn't give it back to the Pandavas when they came back from the 12-year being in the forest and the 1 year incognito. He had the same power. He had given it once, he could give it again. Duryodhana said no. Dhritarashtra did not overrule Duryodhana. And so, of course, you do that, you set yourself up for situations like that. And Krishna had already warned them in the Virat battle when Pandavas had actually finished their 1 year, but still hadn't come out yet. They were still in that place. And they fought on behalf of Virat, the war there. Duryodhan and all the other the Maharathis, Karna and Drona and Bhishma, they were all there. But Arjun defeated them. So it should have been obvious to really to Maharaj Dhritarashtra that if one of the Pandavas was able to defeat them. So if they wanted a war, chances of them winning was quite slim. But still, Duryodhana wanted it, and the father wasn't going to stop it, not realizing that when you set yourself up like that, Krishna just leads you to your own destruction. So Krishna added this to all the other situations of the impious kings and had them meet in one place, and in 18 days they were gone. So if we want to cheat, we're going to be in trouble because Krishna is in fact the greatest cheater. And we should never forget that everything comes from him. So when it comes to cheating, we will not be able to survive a situation like that with the Lord. So we should never, ever cheat. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, he talks about it. Dyutam chalayatam asmi tejas tejashvinam aham jayosmi javayaso smi satvam satpatam aham. I'm also the gambling of cheats. And of the splendid, I am the splendor, I am victory, I am adventure, I am the strength of the strong. So it's interesting that everything about the Pandavas is described by Krishna's nature, and also about the Kurus is described by Krishna's nature. I'm also the gambling of cheats. When one cheats or when gambles, then you put yourself in a situation you can be cheated. And it was gambling that caused all of this. But then Krishna is the greatest of cheats. He's the greatest of everything. So since the Pandavas were given that kind of raw deal, then Krishna cheated them and took everything away. Took everything away from Dhritarashtra. You're not going to do anything about it. Just sit and have Sanjay sit down with you and explain the destruction from one son after another until all the sons are killed by one person, Bhim. Because you, 50 lifetimes ago, were one hunter and you killed 100 birds. Therefore, Krishna designated one of the Pandavas to kill all your sons too. He is the greatest cheater. You want to cheat, especially in spirit devotee, you will hear from him. You will definitely hear from him one way or the other. Therefore, this is a warning to all of us, devotees and non-devotees alike. People are cheating. It's going on, especially in politics. Maybe a full name is Kali Yuga politics. It's going on there. People are cheating and lying. And it's got to the point where it's just very, very, very unfortunate. But it doesn't mean that Krishna doesn't see it. If you want to be Krishna conscious, yes, then you get protected. But if you don't want to be, then as my Guru Maharaj likes to say, it's business as usual. Go do whatever you want to do with material energy and find out what it is like. Everybody that does not resort to Krishna consciousness, one way or the other, gets cheated. Because just being in the material world means happiness, or just trying to deal with counteracting the situations here, and you call that happiness. And then distress, a lot of distress. Our souls are Satchidananda. Ananda means bliss or highest happiness. Highest happiness. So we really don't want any kind of distress at all. That's why everybody tends to go towards something that they think will make them feel happy. Even if it means just gratifying the senses against things that can happen to the physical body, sometimes drinking and smoking and all those things, it affects the physical body, but still people want some sort of enjoyment. You're looking at the wrong place, of course. So we try to do that. We try to do that to be happy. But the real happiness comes from being Krishna conscious, serving Krishna senses, and Krishna in love relates back to us. And that's how we become happy. Real happy. The understanding we should have about who Krishna says, he says it in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text 29. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam savaloka maheshwaram. Suhridam Bhutanam. That is what he says. Yeah, 3 conditions. Understand that when we do all sacrifices, yagya and tapasya and all renunciation, we should do it for Krishna. Just like Kadama Muni did. Kadama Muni went through a lot of renunciation and taxed his body, literally. But it was just to please Krishna. Krishna was very happy, in fact, shed tears of just so much being very, very, very appreciative of just Kadama Muni just putting his body in that kind of stress just to serve Krishna. Just to serve Krishna. Just to make Krishna happy. And pure devotees go through that all of the time. Whatever it is that they face. Sanatana Goswami did it. Srila Prabhupada did it. He was on the boat, heart attack. This comes, nothing is working out. In one of his lectures, and he has a way of sometimes even things that are difficult. When he talks about it later, he makes it sound funny. But that's Srila Prabhupada. Okay. And he talked about that nothing was working. I went back and this checking about when the next boat will come. He was in America. The next boat will come to go back to India. And he gets told when it will come, but somehow I could not get on. And he said, finally, those that were working, they said, Swamiji, you keep coming here to ask when the next boat comes, but you never get on. Why? So at the back of his mind, he knew his Guru Maharaj wanted him to preach in the West, and he was in the West. So obeying his spiritual master was primary to him. But at the same time, the reality of the material things is that things weren't working out well for him. And so he thought, well, maybe I'll go back, maybe I'll go back. But the Lord tested him, and he passed the test. And because of that, we are all devotees. Srila Prabhupada was so merciful, took so much inconvenience. That is what a devotee is supposed to be about, not being a cheater. So at the back of our minds, if we have issues with other people, especially devotees, we have to make sure we find a way to resolve it. Actually, we know one of the 9 processes of serving is prayer. We start praying about the situation. If you have an issue with anybody, that should be very, very, very primary in our prayers. It should be where we focus on, ask Guru, ask Lord Chaitanya, I would like this resolved, and ask for the strategy, the way to go about it, to resolve it. For those who pray like that, it happens in their life. The resolution will come, and the Lord will plan the way it's going to come. Remember, this is the last point, we only do things based on whatever's been given, our abilities, but we can't control other people's abilities or their decisions. We can only react to it, but we can't do so. When we pray, then Krishna, who is in everyone's heart, can set up a situation such that what is disturbing to us can be resolved. And that way our minds become clear, and then we grow more and more and more in Krishna consciousness. So yes, Dhritarashtra was wrong. The first mistake was to keep the fact that the kingdom was given to Pandu in his heart when in fact he was against it and never voiced anything about it. And so it was the beginning of the end of him and his sons. So we got to be careful. This is a very, very wonderful royal path of devotion that we are on, headed for the best planet ever, Goloka Vrindavan. We should not sabotage it with negativity that we could resolve and don't. And this was the Dhritarashtra's problem. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So much of what I've said was for my own self-purification. That's interesting. When speaking, because they uses you to remind of things that you should do or not do. That's also self-purification. So thank you for allowing me to do this service. Now, if the devotees want to unmute yourself, please you can make comments, ask questions, or share some realizations from this. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So feel free to unmute yourself if you want and make some comments.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, how to do the devotional service, how to do the bhakti. And then pure devotional service makes a lot of difference. It helps a lot in your life. And how many pieces of life Dhritarashtra went. But now we don't think that we have to pay for it. Whatever sin we do this life. And again, we think that this is the life and I can be enjoying and everything. That is not the thing.
No.
And knowing that we are listening all these things, but still human beings, we do commit mistakes. So
yeah. That's unfortunately part of four defects. We are in illusion, we commit mistakes, imperfect senses, and sometimes we cheat. And some of that happened in the Dhritarashtra's court.
Yeah.
And
he paid for it. He paid for it.
Heavily.
After all the lives.
He paid very heavily for it.
Very heavily.
Imagine having 100 sons and losing all of them.
Yeah. See.
That's horrible.
That's really horrible. Sad. That's really sad. So that is a good lesson for us, and not to cheat or not to do mistakes, Guru
Govinda Maharaj said this. Guru Govinda Maharaj, I'm sorry to interrupt. Guru Govinda Maharaj is saying that, yes, we are in Kali Yuga now, but devotees are supposed to live like we're in Satya Yuga. For our mentality, we have to live like Satya Yuga. And Satya Yuga is the cleanest time of all the ages in the material world.
Yeah, it's the best time, Satya Yuga.
Yeah. But
we came in this Kali Yuga.
Yeah.
So
Satya
I must have
there.
some things. I must have done something. That's why I'm in Kali Yuga.
Yeah, well, but still, it's a good time because there is a break in terms of how to get back to Godhead. Many things have been made easier for us to do. So we take advantage of it. And then, yes, it's a very difficult life, very uncomfortable life in many ways, especially mentally. And you see things around us and how the dangers are there all the time. But it's a short life. And if you take this Krishna consciousness seriously, you get to go to Goloka Vrindavan. That's a huge benefit that's there if only we'll take it. But as Gogomaya Maharaj is saying, we have to live life like in Satya Yuga, be peaceful, have self-control, control of the senses, austerity, these are all the Brahmanas qualities they work, Brahminical qualities. Austerity and purity of mind, cleanliness, and tolerance, because things will happen, you have to tolerate. Even the demigods, sometimes they throw weather that's challenging to us. We have to, again, tolerate, do the best that we can. You got to know more about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, knowledge. and apply the knowledge. When we apply, the great thing about Srimad Bhagavatam is when you get to know what Srimad Bhagavatam says and you apply it, if we apply it in our lives, we're automatically wise people. Automatically, because it's all wisdom. You apply it immediately, you're wise. So that's just a great thing that's there, wisdom. And then stick to our sadhana. Seriously. It is life or death for us, our sadhana. We take it seriously, we have good spiritual life. We don't take it seriously, then we're just like the walking dead. We don't have much to go for us. We're just like ordinary karmis. The only difference is because we've had prasadam, we would be back in human bodies next life. Whereas there's those who haven't, if they act in the mode of ignorance, they can go to non-human bodies next life. But we're still not getting out of the material world, though. We're not. So the things that we don't like will still be around. So yeah, needless to say, this is an opportunity that we have, a great opportunity in a difficult time, Kali Yuga, but a great opportunity to have all of this anxiety end once and for all by going back to God. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Krishna's mercy, Guru's mercy.
Yes. Yeah, but Kali Yuga, at least we have short life,
Yeah. Life.
If we have like the 400 years, like in Satyuga, then we keep on making these mistakes, and forever we'll be in that thing. So at least we have short of life.
Yeah, shorter life, but a wonderful thing waiting for us. So Shukri Goswami advice, devotees should not be afraid of death. Death is Krishna coming to take us back home. Krishna, yeah.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thanks.
Any other comments before we end?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Humble obeisances, praise to Srila Prabhupada. Very nice class. Thank you for the class and refreshing the pastimes from the Mahabharata. And we got so many lessons. We should know
a lot.
Yeah, and only if you are spiritually conscious, then only Krishna helps us.
Yeah.
And as you said in the conclusion, that and whatever is disturbing us, if we are in Krishna consciousness, so Krishna helps us and makes our mind clear. We do the bhakti. So really nice to hear. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Mataji, I think you were the one that asked the question the other day about when Lord Brahma spoke the Brahma Samhita.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I said at that time that I'll go do some digging to find it out. Lord Brahma, when he was born, first with all the confusion, he was, of course, we went back into the stem of the lotus. He saw things that were to be used to create, but he came back out and Kabadakshai Vishnu told him, just do tapasya. After he did the pasya, the Lord actually revealed himself to him and revealed the spiritual world to him also. And so at that time, that's why he was able to say Chintamani Prakara Satmasu he was able, then he had the vision of the spiritual, what was going on and all of that. So that was the time, right after his tapasya, that the Lord appeared and the spiritual world was also made visible to him, that he started that compilation of wonderful words.
Very, very nice. Thank you, Prabhuji.
I thought he did when Brahma he steals all the cows and the covered boys.
He had prayers then. He had prayers, but that was not now. Right? That's a different one. He had prayers. There's prayers there too, but I don't think that's. Brahma has a lot of prayers though. Many different situations. Yeah, so the other day we were talking about the marriage of Radha and Krishna, which was arranged in the spiritual world, and he, Brahma, was the one that presided over the marriage. And he also, yeah, it was part of the pastimes. Again, he offered prayers at that time. Radha and Krishna, yeah. There's a lot of prayers by Lord Brahma.
Yeah, I thought like that, that when he steal the cows and covered boys, then he must have prayed because he realizes, that.
But at that time, he was begging. Prayer was more in the begging form. As
when he did tapa, then he knew what to say to Lord. When he did tapa, gave you power. Maybe God gave him power to say what he said.
Yeah, but he also gave him the vision of the spiritual world so that he could just look at it and include it, in the prayers.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Spiritual world is Chintamani. Very much so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Oh, can I say one more thing, though? This is from
we want to hear. We love that nectar. We love that nectar.
There is one thing about wealth that if wealthy people hear, they actually be shocked that in the spiritual world, every entity in the spiritual world has tremendous wealth. Krishna makes so much wealth available. And the comparison that's made is that the wealth of those in the spiritual world, every individual, is bigger than the wealth of Lord Brahma. Now, Lord Brahma is the one that's worth the whole universe. But those in the spiritual world have more wealth. And then it's described, Gopi Prabhu described it. But he also said that they don't even care about that wealth. They just want to serve Krishna in love. That's their main thing. The bhakti is very important to them. But what's made available is so much that by our standards here on this planet, we're poor people. Even the richest is actually poor compared to what's available for those to use in the spiritual world if they want to. And so all we have to do is just take the process seriously so we can go back. And we will be very, very extremely well cared for by the Lord. So we're very fortunate. Very few people, only a few million in the world know about Krishna consciousness. I wish everybody knew. Problems would be solved. But anyway, it's Kali Yuga, so what to do? Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. There. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripasindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, class.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.